Good morning, traders. Today is January 4th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream. All right. Well, I started off today zoomed out like this so that we could look at the profile over the last week or so, just because I wanted to draw this yellow box and show you guys that this is what I would describe as a balance area. So when you hear me talk about these balance areas, the reason they're so important to recognize is because they present us with great trading opportunities. Okay. So earlier on last week, I was pointing out that this area in here felt like it was becoming a balance area high, and we needed to head down to discover a balance area low. I originally thought it was probably going to be up here in this area. I'd say it's a little bit lower now with what went down yesterday. But yesterday would have been a look below and fail of the balancing area, increasing the odds of a rotation to the opposite end of the balance yesterday. And then, of course, with the spike up in the M period, there was no reason in the world why the overnight couldn't just take us straight up there to the opposite end. You can see they had some trade there. They spent some time in there. That's where the POC is for the overnight. But then they ended up pushing higher, making new all-time highs. So now what we can think about in this context is what happens when they test that balancing area. So let's say this area here is the balance area high. Now that we've looked above it, when we pull back down, do we find support in this area? If we do, that would be very bullish for continuation higher, right? Balance leads to excess. If we've been bouncing around in this range and we successfully break out today, we could have excess to the upside. Okay, now it's important to remember there's a gap here that also needs to fill. Sorry, I didn't get to explain all this before the open. So there's also the gap, right, between where we open this morning and where we closed yesterday, the high of yesterday. So this gap needs to fill. There's a higher probability of this gap filling. So seeing what happens as the market tries to fill this gap can give us a good insight for the day. If it can't find support in this area up here and then turn around and head higher, and it fails and it starts to pull back into that value, that previous balancing area, what does that mean? We're likely to target the opposite end of balance. So to me, the last major support to the upside, if the market finds support anywhere inside the gap, that is bullish for continuation higher. If it finds support at yesterday's high, that is still bullish. That is still a gap and go for continuation higher. But if it doesn't find support at yesterday's high, the target becomes the balance area lows, which are the lows from the last couple days. So the market is setting us up to tell us where it's going to move very, very soon. Good morning, Diego, Philip, Steven. Good to see you guys. Welcome. David Glass back with us. Good morning to you. Scooball is here. Cyrus. Nor Auto Trading. Good morning. Nicholas. Hi to you. James, good morning. Let's stock and bag some stealthy ticks. I'm not sure what that means, but let's do it. Let's bag some stealthy ticks. Okay, so as long as the market continues to find support in this little node of volume that we just created around the opening price here, that is a gap and go, which is about as bullish a scenario as you could have. Breaking out of a previous balancing area and a gap and go is pretty bullish. Yeah, the NQ seems to have tested its balancing area high overnight as well, but it rejected off of it and pushed back down to the opening price. So the NQ is not quite as bullish as the ES this morning. It's now in the middle of its balancing area. So I would draw it more like this. So next major support is going to be in this area here. So you're looking at 16,430s. All right, back to the ES. Still gapping and going. Forgot to mention the all-time high being made in the overnight is considered weak and in need of repair as well. step in here, we could be looking at a gap and go in a pretty bullish day for a trend higher. Break out of balance. Lamus, could it be a new high and a reversal? Yeah, that's possible. If the buyers don't step in here, new buyers stepping in at the new high, yeah, we could start to try to backfill this gap very quickly, getting us back down to yesterday's high. If those buyers don't step in, but they seem to be at the moment. Trading Donkey saying the repair of the all-time high by just 2 ticks is a sign of the market doing the bare minimum. That is true. It just repaired. But that's step 1. At this point, I think it's safe to say if we are going to get continuation higher today, we should stay above the opening price. So like 48.01-ish. Just call it 4,800. We should stay above 4,800. If we pull back below there, we're likely to fill the gap down to yesterday's high at 47.87. But as long as we stay above 4,800, as I said, breaking out of balance could lead to excess to the upside. Value is higher. We have a gap and go. So a trend day to the upside is not out of the question. All right, well, we got good taper on the high here. Decent taper. This area that was acting as support around 48.05 is now starting to feel like resistance. And the ticks are just starting to creep below the zero line, which is a sign of the sellers piling on. So if they can't get it higher here, they're likely to need to pull back and fill that gap. I can just feel the tension building. It's either going to burst to the upside or it's going to pull right back down to that high from yesterday. Designed up feels like we need a good old fashioned murder bot style pullback here. so liquidation break. It does feel like they're building up pressure for something. Zeb thinks one more push up to 48.10 to grab some stops up there. I don't know, man. This feels like resistance. They're keeping the ticks above the zero line, so it's okay. The bulls are still in charge, but feels like they're running out of steam. All right, so short term, it looks like we're going to target that gap fill. So I'm going to turn the banner down here bearish. But that is just in the short term to get to yesterday's high. If we find support anywhere inside the gap or at yesterday's high, that is actually bullish for continuation higher. But I think we need to at least attempt to fill it a little bit. What are the numbers? What's this news that's coming? What's the data we're waiting for? What will it say about our future? Jitten, bearish with highs. Yeah, I'm still a little bit bearish, at least for a gap fill. Of course, I'll be wrong if they start to make new highs right now. But look at the ticks. There's not the buyers you think there is up here. And when we run out of buyers, price goes the other direction. Oh, jobs. Chris P., great question. For the volume profile on the left, are you using the regular trading hours or all the data? So the one you see over here in today's profile, that is just today's volume for since the market opened. And then when we print a B period, you'll see this middle one here, this volume profile, that will be for just the B period, just the current 30 minutes. So the one to the left, that is for the full day. And the one in the middle is for the current 30 minutes. And then the orange one that's over here to the left, that is the cumulative of like the last 30 days all put together. So you got volume profiles on different time frames simultaneously. Look how clean that balancing area looks, man. Would love to come back down and just test that high at the very least. If not the high from yesterday. Ooh, so the numbers were a little lower than expected. Now let's see how the market reacts. Sometimes this market buy is bad news, so there's no way to know. All right, well, the buyers aren't panicking just yet in the ES. But I suspect once we get below the opening price, they'll start to. Okay, so there we go. So again, first potential support is going to be this area I have marked as the balance area high. It's not an exact level, but just somewhere around that 94 area, where you can see the overnight spent some time bouncing around. That's the first potential support. That would give us half a gap fill and be a test of the balance area high, which is often how you break out of balance, right? You look above, you pull back down, you test the high, and then you get continuation. But the other scenario is if we don't find it there, we have to pull back down to yesterday's high and look for the same type of support there at 87.25. Everybody seems to appreciate having that 1080 back. Give me that thumbs up if you appreciate the 1080, that full, beautiful HD profile. I could even zoom it in for you. Oh, it's crystal clear. Smash the like if you want to pull back here. If you want to see the market pull back down there and test that balance area high. And now smash that like button if you'd like to see the market find support here and start trending higher. Making new all-time highs. Smash that like button. Selling theta, no. Well, I have to admit, I'm impressed that these buyers are, they're hanging in by the hair on their chinny chin chin. But they're back above the zero line once again. So that may have been all the pullback they needed. All right, I'm back to neutral. I'm still not convinced the bulls have enough to start trending higher here. But I'm impressed that we haven't backfilled that gap yet. Of course, as soon as I say it, the market turns on me. Overlord 3000 looking for the breakout of the small initial balance. Yeah, that's a great point. Whichever way the market breaks out of this initial balance, it should get some continuation in that direction. It's a very like when what should happens doesn't kind of vibe happening right here. The market should be backfilling the gap, right? The NQ is very bearish. It's trending lower. And we have a giant gap that needs to be backfilled. We have a balance area that needs to be retested. Yet the market is holding itself up here just below the opening price. So it's like the market should be selling off here, but it's not. And what is that telling us? right, well, now they're losing those ticks. Those buyers are giving up. Now we're going to go look to backfill that gap. VIX pushing up. Fear? Question mark. Fear. I mean, you would expect a little bit of insurance buying at all-time highs. Bitcoin looks like it might need another drop down to 41. Unless 46 can hold. See, when I look at charts like this, balancing areas jump out at me. Like instantly. They become so easy to see. The way you build them right on top of each other. Well, the bulls are back. That was out of nowhere. All right. Well, with the C period getting above the B period, the way that I think about one time framing is that the C period getting above the B period is a sign of cessation, that the A to B had started a downtrend, but that now that downtrend is over. So to my mind, that increases the odds the market is going to go sideways here at higher prices. If the C period gets above the A period, though, and it continues to push higher, and the ticks start to trend higher, I will actually be willing to consider it one-time framing higher as the C period breaking out of the initial balance to the upside. Just because this is, as I've been discussing all morning, it's so bizarre how bullish this market is, considering the fact that it had many, many reasons for a bigger pullback, and every dip just got bought immediately right back up. This could also be considered, this B period low, a test of the balance area high, right? We always like to break out of balance, come back, test it, and then continue higher from there. And that could be considered a test, as that's this general area. So I would say at this point, I am neutral, assuming sideways action, but with the potential for the market to get bullish if it can get continuation of this momentum. But every time it starts to flirt with these lows, once again, every time it starts to get back below, say, 98, all day long, you should start to worry it might need to pull back and fill that gap. So as far as buying rotation down there, buy with tight stops. And with that, I shall bid you all farewell. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate those 57 likes. 120 people here. 57, you thought I was cool. So I appreciate that. And I will see you all here tomorrow morning. If you're in the Brigade, I'll see you on the private stream.